In this video, I'm going to show you how to build your very own Google Drive clone using Next.js. By the end of this tutorial, you'll have a fully functioning cloud storage app where users can upload, preview, and manage their files, just like Google Drive, with the added benefits of AI manipulation on the images and the videos themselves. So kind of like a Google Drive 2.0 or AI Google Drive. Here's what you'll achieve. A polished interface for file uploads, previews, and management, a drag and drop feature for seamless uploads of pictures and videos, integration with Cloudinary, allowing you to store, optimize, and deliver media files efficiently, a robust backend built with Next.js that ensures fast performance and scalability, the ability to toggle the removal of backgrounds on images thanks to AI features on Cloudinary, the ability to toggle grayscale thanks to AI features on Cloudinary, change backgrounds with AI thanks to Cloudinary, and download the new image, and the ability to crop videos thanks to AI features on, you guessed it, Cloudinary. Now, why would you want to build this? As developers, creating applications that handle and manage files is a common requirement, whether it's for personal projects, client applications, or product-ready tools. By building this project, you'll not only learn how to implement key features like media uploads and real-time previews, but you'll also understand how to integrate cloud storage services like Cloudinary to manage files effectively. This tutorial is more than just creating a clone. It's about learning scalable and reusable techniques that you can apply to countless other projects. Whether you're working on a collaborative tool, a content platform, or a SaaS application, the skills you gain here will set you up for success. So, what are we waiting for? Let's dive in and start building. Make sure to check out the description below for the resources you'll need to follow along, and let's bring this Google AI Drive clone to life step by step. Okay, so first off, of course, because we are building this clone, we're going to have to store all our assets somewhere, so our images and videos, and we're going to do so with Cloudinary. So please go ahead and use the link in the video description in order to get to this point. I, of course, have already signed up to Cloudinary, so I'm just going to choose to sign in again. And you should be taken as a new user to this Getting Started page, okay, which will help you essentially spin up a project and install Cloudinary and choose the correct SDK. So we're going to be building this in Next.js. So that is something that we are going to need. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this command because that is something that we're going to use. So great, that is now done. A quick explanation of this platform. So essentially, the media library, so I'm just going to open that up. This is the assets that we're going to be using simply because there are already 57 assets in here that are going to get us started. But of course, we're going to add our own. We're going to add some more images and we're going to add some videos too. So this is what the media library looked like. You can type to filter all of these, or of course you can upload your own. It's up to you. We're going to be uploading this via the app, however. So great, of course, you can also delete them too, simply by pressing delete, and you can actually edit them in here as well. So for example, if we want to remove the background, so I'm going to select this and let's go ahead and remove the background like so. Yes, I'm going to remove the background completely. Okay, so remove background like this. This is essentially what we're going to be doing in our app. Okay, we're going to be removing the background. We're also going to be making this grayscale. And we're going to do some stuff to videos too. But yeah, so of course you can do it in here, but doing it via the app is the purpose of this tutorial today. So great, let's just unclick that. And let's go back to installing Next Cloudinary into our projects. Okay, so all I'm going to do is just get up VS Code. This is going to be my code editor for today. And then let's get on my terminal. I'm just going to gravitate to a directory that I like to work in called development. So development is a folder that lives on my computer. And I'm just going to essentially use a command in order to start a Next.js project. That command is npx create next app latest. And I'm just going to choose to essentially call it Next.js Google Drive, just like so. So I'm just going to hit enter on that. Okay, so now that will do its thing. Need to install the following packages. Let's go ahead and do yes. Would you like to proceed with TypeScript? I'm going to go with no for this project, but you can. Let's use ESLint. Let's not use Tailwind. I'm happy to have all my code inside the source directory. So I'm going to hit enter. Would you like to use the app router? No. Let's not use TurboBack either. No, and there we go. So that is how I've configured my project. Just make sure to use the same so you don't get any mistakes. And if you want to change it later on, that's totally fine too. Okay, you can do it however you wish. So we're just going to wait for this to do its thing so that we can essentially then install this package, so Next Cloudinary. So once again, let's just copy that. And we're of course going to have to use some API keys as well. So let's do that in a second. So first off, however, let's just open that folder which lives in development, so Next.js Google Drive. I'm just going to open that up, and wonderful. So if you now look in here, you should see everything that I just installed, and let's go in here, making sure you are in the Next.js Google Drive, and just do npm I Next Cloudinary to install that package as well along with its version. Okay, so now we should see Next Cloudinary here along with its version. It is quite important to use the exact same versions that I'm using here as well. So if you're watching this in the future and something doesn't quite add up, we're at 7 or something, make sure to write 6 here and then just rerun that, do npm I. Of course, I'm not going to do that because I'm happy with these versions that we are using here today. So great, that is my whole package JSON file. Make sure to have the same. Wonderful. Okay, now of course we are also going to have to use our API keys. So let's view them in here. We're going to get the cloud name, so just copy that. Let's go back in here and I'm just going to create a .env file. So, and the root of my project, I'm just going to create that like so. And then here, well, let's just call this next public Cloudinary cloud name equals, and I'm just going to paste it in like that. Okay, so that is my .env file. We're also going to have, I'm just going to put next public in front of all of these and Cloudinary 2. So Cloudinary URL. Then we're going to have the Cloudinary API secret and the Cloudinary API key. And let's just do equals on all of these, and let's continue. So let's get the API keys. I'm simply just going to paste that in like so. Let's get the API secret, so you can view it here as well. I'm going to show you mine because I am going to be deleting this in the future when this is out, so I'm not worried about sharing this. And the API environment variable. So this is the URL. I'm just going to copy that, and I'm just going to paste it in like so. So those are the 4 things that you will need in order to connect to Cloudinary. Great. So I'm just going to get rid of that for now. Okay, great. So now back here, let's just continue. We're going to have to do a few things in order to work with Cloudinary. But first off, I'm just going to start by cleaning this up a bit because we don't need everything in here. For example, let's start with the pages. On the index here, well, first off, just going to maybe move this over a bit. I'm just going to start by getting rid of all of these semicolons. We're not going to need the image. We're not going to need these right here. So let's delete that. I'm literally going to start from scratch. So I'm just going to export the default function whilst also perhaps changing this to a function expression just because that is my preference. So there we go. So now we need to export default home down here. But I'm first also just going to delete everything so we can literally start from scratch. So let's delete everything to here. And there we go. So once again, let's do export default home. That is correct. I'm going to change the title of this to be Google Drive clone. Let's change the description. So maybe let's just remove that for now. change this to be main page of Google Drive. We'll keep that viewport. I'm going to get rid of the favicon. You can add your own later if you want. And for this div, well, let's just start fresh. So I'm just going to create an empty div like that. Okay, so there we go. This is literally the whole content of the index.js file that you should have at the moment. Wonderful. So now let's continue. So we've done that. Let's look at the document next. The document we are essentially going to keep as it is. So that is all of it like so. I'm just going to get rid of these semicolons and perhaps make this a functional expression. Just to be consistent, right? We want to keep some consistency in our code. So export default document. Great. So once again, this is the entire content of the document file, the entire content of the index.js. Let's move on. Next, let's look at the app. So with the app, I'm happy to keep it as it is. Once again, this is what it looks like. So once again, you can, of course, change this. Again, it is up to you if you're a stickler for keeping consistent. Export default app. Great. So we've done it now. We've done these 3 files. Next, let's look at the styles. So styles, once again, we want to just keep this super basic. So I'm just going to delete this whole file. Let's just have one style sheet, which is going to be global CSS. And I'm just going to delete everything in here so it's empty. So we've done the styles. We've done these 3 files. Next is the API, which essentially I am, let's just going to delete this. So we'll delete hello and let's add our own. So I'm going to add a new file and this is going to be assets.js because we're going to want to get all those assets. Another thing you can do, as we are going to be using JSX here, is rename this to be a JSX file, whereas we're not going to be using JSX in files like this, for example, hence I've just kept it as JS. So that is totally up to you. So for example, this should also be a JSX file, and this should also be a JSX file, okay, because we have JSX in this. Okay, let's not get too bogged down in this. So once again, this is what we've changed. Global CSS is empty. Index.js we've changed a little bit, so it looks just like that. Document, this is all that should be in it. App, this is all that should be in it. And assets is empty at the moment. Great. In the public, we also have some images. So, you can just get rid of those because we are not using them. So I'm just going to delete those and move them to trash. Okay, so we've now totally cleaned up our project. I'm happy with that. I think the first thing we should do is just kind of build it out. And for this, I'm going to need some components. So in the source directory, I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it, you guessed it, components, just like so. And in here, we're going to have a few. We're going to have a dashboard. So let's go ahead and call this dashboard.jsx, just like so. And const dashboard is what's going to be in here. Okay, we're just going to return something, sure, a div with the h1 dashboard, and export default dashboard. Okay, so one component is made. Let's just copy this and use it for the others. So we've got a dashboard. Let's create a new file. So a new file. Let's call this header.jsx. I'm just going to paste that and I'm going to change dashboard in these 3 places to just say header, just like so. Let's do the same for the others. So once again, I'm going to create a new file. This time we're going to create an image card.jsx. Once again, I'm going to paste that. I'm going to highlight these 3 and just change the text to image card, just like so. So we've got 3. Let's create a sidebar as well. So you get the drill. There we go. Paste that and change these 3 to say sidebar. Okay. There are other shortcuts you can use, but of course I don't really want to use too many shortcuts because I think new viewers or beginners might get confused. So now we've got the video card as well. So once again, let's just highlight these three and change this to video card. Wonderful. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 components in here. Now let's get to building this out. So I think first off, what we should do is let's work on the header. So I'm just going to minimize all this, just like so. And let's get up our header. Now our header is going to be relatively easy. We're going to have a logo. So I'm going to import image from Next image. This is going to allow us to work with images much better, specifically for Next.js. So instead of just returning the h1 header, well, actually, I'm just going to show you what this looks like for now. So for example, if we want to put the header in the index.js file, all I would do, so let's head over to the index here. So this is the main page of our app, right? I'm going to import header from, and then the components directory, and yep, we need the header. So now if I put the header in here, well, most of you should know this, but I'm just being really obvious for those who do not. If I want to put the header above this div, I would simply put the component like so. And we know the component is literally just made up of this div and the h1 element. So this means, let's go ahead and run our app using npm run dev. This is a command in the package.json file, and this will spin up my app on localhost 3000. So if we go here, this is my app at the moment. And if I inspect this like so, you will see that in the body, okay, here we go. This is everything that's being kind of like pushed into our app. You get a div with the h1 header. So this is essentially our header component, okay? It's kind of neatly bundled up in our project, but essentially just spits out this div with the h1 header. We don't really want this in the long run, but I just wanted to show you how that looks. So let's just minimize that, because we're going to be deleting this, and we're going to actually use an element with semantic meaning, which is the header element. So just like that, header. And I am going to then use the image. And this is just some boilerplate for it. So here we go. We're not going to, of course, use the Vercel SVG. We're going to use our own. So just going to make this a little bit more readable for you. So that is what our image is going to be. And sure, let's just have the h1 element back, but instead we're just going to put drive. So the width of this image, I just want it to be 50 by 50 pixels. So I'm just going to replace that. As alternative text, I'm just going to put drive logo, and then we're going to have to essentially put in our drive logo. So in my public directory, you know, we got rid of all those images. I'm just going to stick in a new one. So this is literally just me dragging the drive logo PNG in here. So that's what it looks like. You can get it off the internet, or you can get it from my project. And now I just have to essentially replace this with the file name like so. So if I save this and look in here, ta-da, that's what shows up. Wonderful. So that essentially is my whole header for now. Of course, we are not yet done. So in terms of code in this file, well, I think we are good. Again, this is all the code that you're going to see in here. Let's also keep this file for now and get up our global CSS file. Okay, great. So let's style up the header, as well as some other things. I think let's style the actual web page too. So first things first, I am going to grab the HTML. I'm going to grab the body element, and all I'm going to do is just remove any default margin like so, and remove any padding. So there we go. That is just to start fresh. What I'm also going to do is grab any h1 element and padding. I'm going to say it's 0, 0, 0, 10 pixels, which means that it's 0 on the top, 0 on the right, 0 at the bottom, and 10 pixels on the left. Okay, so that is that padding applied. I'm also actually going to add margin 0 to the H1 element. Okay, one thing I'm also going to do is just pick the font. So I'm going to say that everything in here is going to have the font family, and I'm going to choose to import Poppins. And then as a backup, I'm going to have to home. And as a backup to that, I'm going to have sans serif. Okay, so just like so. The font weight for everything, I'm also going to set that. So font weight is going to be 300. And the color overall is not going to be black. It's kind of going to be like an off black. So very dark gray. Great. So at the moment, you will see that. However, with the font to Homer, because we need to go to Google Fonts. And all I'm going to do is essentially search for Poppins, like so. So here is the font that we're going to need. I'm going to get the font and we're going to embed it. So I'm going to do so with an import. So here we are. You can select all of them or you can go ahead and select the ones you want. I've gone ahead and got all of them. However, we don't really need to do this, I don't think. Let's just go ahead and get the 300 one. So light 300. Yeah, I think that's it. So now we can copy this, and back in here, I'm just going to stick that up here like so and get rid of these because we just need that import like that. So if you want to see all, that is my full URL, but you should hopefully get that simply just by selecting these two right here, and that should be constructed. Great. So you might even want to put Poppins in a string form like so, but I'm not sure it will really make a difference, so you could just do that as well and it will still be applied. Cool. Let's move on. So now I'm also going to go ahead and grab the whole body because I want to apply a background color. So the background color is going to be, let's get it, RGB 240, 244, 248. So I have already picked this out. It's kind of like a really, really light gray. And I'm also going to grab the header itself and give it a padding of 20 pixels on the top and bottom and 40 pixels on the left and right, as you can see here. Cool. Next, I'm going to use display flex to make sure that the image and the text or the H1 element appear essentially next to each other rather than stacked over each other. And let's also align them. So I'm going to do align items in the center. Okay, and by center, I mean center from the top to bottom. So there we go, they're next to each other and they're aligned from top to bottom. Wonderful, I think this is looking good. The align item center works because there is a height to that element. Great, and that's kind of really it for the header. Let's move on. So now back in here, I'm actually just going to close that because once again, this is the code. We are done with this. Let's move on to the dashboard next. So I'm just going to scroll up to the dashboard. Let's minimize this and continue. So for this, we're going to have to import two other components. So we're going to import the image card from image card, and we're also going to import video card from video card. Now here, what I'm going to do, well, we're going to pass a lot of props into here. But for now, I'm just going to, let's get rid of that H1 element. I'm going to return H2 element. And this is going to say, welcome to Drive AI. Okay, make sure to spell welcome correctly, not like me. And let's change this also to be main. So not use a div, but let's use elements with semantic meaning. Now here, what I'm going to do is also have an input that allows us to search. So I'm going to make sure that the class name of this is main search so I can pick this out and not just grab an input. And let's also have some placeholder text. So placeholder, and let's put the text of, maybe let's just put this on new line so it's easier for us to see, just like so. Placeholder text of search in Drive, And then we're also going to have a value, which we're just going to leave an empty string for now. And then we're going to have an on change, but again, maybe let's just leave that for now. Let's just style this up first. So cool, I'm happy with this. And then also I'm going to have another div. So first off, I'm just going to make this a self-closing tag, as that is fine for an input. And this div is actually going to store all of our uploads. So I'm going to call it the uploads container, which is very, I guess, obvious about what that does. And here, well, we're going to map items onto things. We're going to map assets onto image cards. However, only if they are an image, so the asset resource type matches image. Otherwise, we're going to map them onto video cards if the asset resource type is a video. So for now, I've just put that in here just so you can see what it looks like. And what we're going to do is put that dashboard in here. So we've got the header. Then we have this div. I'm going to give this div the class name of main container. And in the main container, well, we're going to have the dashboard. Okay, so just like so, we are going to, like I said, feed stuff into here, but for now, we're just going to have dashboard. So this means if I now look in here, amazing, you will see essentially all of this, which is the dashboard component. So now let's style it up. So let's go back here and let's do it. So first off, I'm going to grab the element with the class name. So dot means class name of main container. And the main container, well, I'm just going to make sure that everything appears next to each other by using display flex. So I've initialized flex box. And also let's grab the main element, and I'm just going to select background color and change it once again. This time I'm going to change it to be white. So that is the RGB for white, and I'm going to make sure that the width is 100%. Okay, so just like that. I'm also going to make sure the height is 100 of the viewport height, and let's round it off. So I'm going to give it a border radius of 30 pixels. So just soften it up a bit. And once again, I'm going to use display flex to initialize flexbox so that I can also use flex direction and make sure that everything appears inside as a column. I'm also going to align items in the center, making sure that everything is centered from left to right this time because we changed the flex direction. And I'm also going to, on the y-axis of overflow, allow a scroll so that, you know, if there's items overflowing, we can scroll to them without moving the element or anything like that. So there we go, everything is centered in the middle. You can see it's white. You might really have to do some contrasting on your screens if you can't see the difference, but this is great, this is white. And cool. We of course need to style the input and the image cards and the video cards too, so let's do that next. So the input that we used, I gave it a class name so we could pick it out. We don't get confused with other inputs that we will be using. I'm going to choose the background color of RGB 240, 244, 248 for it. I'm also going to give it a border none, a font size of 20 pixels, just like so. Let's go with padding 10 pixels on the top and bottom, 30 pixels on the left and right, a margin of 0, 0, 60 pixels, 0. So this means left, top, right, and bottom. Let's also do border radius, 30 pixels. The color, this time I'm going to do RGB. Let's go with 9599104. And the width is going to be 60%. Great. So that is what our main search looks like at the moment. Let's move on to the image card and video card next. So for now, we are done with this. Once again, this is what the whole file looks like at the moment. I'm going to minimize that and let's work on our image card first. For the image card, well, again, I'm going to use something with semantic meaning, which is the article element, just like so. And then in here, I'm going to use a div. Let's actually give this article a class name because I'm going to reuse this. So class name of card. I'm going to use it for the video card as well. Let's give this the class name of title container, just like so. Then also we're going to use an h4 element. And this time I'm going to put in an emoji. So I'm going to use a span and I'm going to, maybe let's give this the class name of emoji as well so we can pick it out by the class name. And as the name here, well, we're going to feed that in, okay? So each card's going to have a different name that's going to be fed in through the props, but the emoji is going to stay the same. I'm going to choose to use this emoji right here. If you want to find it online, well, simply just visit any of these URLs. So you can visit this one, even though that might be hard to type. So maybe just go on Graphomica and search it, or use a different one too. You don't have to use the same emoji that I am right now. Okay, cool. So you could just search for that in the search bar if you wish. Let's move on. So wonderful, we've done that. I'm going to use the h4 tag again and just put in another emoji, which is these 3 dots. Once again, if you want to search for them, you can do so. You can search for them on the Compart website. It's a Unicode character and you've got the code here. It's a triple colon operator. So wonderful. I'm just going to minimize all of these for now so we can carry on. Now that we've got those done, so that is all in the title container, I'm going to use something called CLD image that we're going to have to import from Next Cloudinary. So this is a self-closing tag, so just like so. And we're going to import it up here. So let's just do import CLD image from Next Cloudinary like that. So we will work on that in a bit. Let's continue with creating some controls. So after the cloud image, I'm going to create a div and let's give this the class name of controls container. We love calling things containers, as you can see. So now that we have that, I'm actually going to create another div, and this one is going to have the class name of controls container. So just like that. So we have controls here actually, and this is a singular control container. And this essentially is going to have an input. Once again, this can be a self-closing tag, and we're going to give this the type of checkbox. Okay, so checkbox just like so. Let's give this the ID as well. I'm going to give this the ID of background, as this is what we're going to toggle to turn the background on and off. Let's also give this the name of background so that we can match it up with what we save it as. And then I'm also going to have it on change, but we don't need that for now. Let's also give this a label so we can see what it's for. The label is going to say no background, and we're going to toggle it. But we also need to match it up. So I'm going to use HTML4 background. So this ID and this HTML4 need to be exactly the same in order to link that label to the input. So great, we have one, and I'm simply just going to copy this and paste it in, so we have 2. However, this ID is going to be grayscale, as this input is going to control whether we want the image to be grayscale or not. So we need to change this HTML4 to be grayscale too. And let's also change the name. Wonderful. So that is what the image card looks like at the moment. Of course, we're going to style it up further, so don't worry about that. Okay, so once you've done these 2 controllers, let's continue, let's style them up. So what I'm going to do now is just simply grab each card just like so. I'm going to change the background color to be RGB. Once again, I have picked this out. It's just similar, same gray that we used earlier. I'm also going to use padding of 15 pixels, just like so. And let's do a border radius of 15 pixels again. Now I'm just simply going to grab the title container like so and use display flex, initialize flex box, justify content, and then we're going to do space between. We're also going to have a width of 300 pixels, just like so, a height of 30 pixels, overflow hidden, and a margin of 20 pixels at the top and bottom, 0 on the left and right. Okay, we're also going to grab the emoji, and I'm going to just change the color of the text to be blue. I'm actually going to use RGB 85246 for this, just like that. And now let's grab the control container. So not plural, control container, making sure to spell control correctly and not plural. Let's initialize flexbox. Let's also do padding of 3 pixels, 0, 0, 3 pixels. A height of 100%. So now if we look here at the control container, you'll see 3 pixels. Padding has been added to the left and top and 0 on the other sides. Okay, so that is for both. Great. Now let's also grab the control container. So once again, singular, just like that. And input. I'm going to say that we're looking for the input with the type of checkbox. So let's put checkbox in here. And I'm just going to apply a margin right this time of 3 pixels and a width of 10 pixels. Okay, cool. We're also going to grab the control container label, and we're going to do margin top this time of 2 pixels. Let's also grab the controls container. So this time it is plural. This is what holds both the control containers together, and let's initialize flexbox so they appear next to each other. Let's center them using justify content space between, and let's also just make sure that the height is 29 pixels. Okay, just because it was giving me some funny styling before, now it looks much better. So great, there we go. And also one thing that I want to do is grab the controls container and also grab the button in the controls container, which we don't have here, but we will have. So I'm just going to add the font size of 12 pixels like so. We're also going to grab any input that lives inside the card and just make sure that its width is 100%, just like so. Its margin is 5 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. We're going to use box sizing, border box, just like that, and a padding of 3 pixels. Okay, so nearly done. Let's just go back to the image card. I'm actually going to add a button here too. So button like so. It's not just going to be in the video card. And this is just going to say download. And I'm also going to put in a fun little text icon here. We're going to have it on click. And then this actually is going to hold all our controls together. So this whole controls container has those items in it. I'm just going to maybe get rid of those spaces. So there we go. That is the whole controls container. And we're also going to have just an input. So input like so, self-closing element. The value here is actually going to be a prompt, which we are yet to write. So I'm just going to leave an empty string, and I'm going to put a placeholder of a string that says start typing to change background. Okay, or to change image. Let's put image, because we can change the image to be a grayscale version too. So start typing to change image. Cool. So that is more what it looks like at the moment. So for this now, it's fine. I'm just going to work on the video card next, and then we can get to working on the sidebar and actually getting some images and videos to show up. So done with the image card, let's work on the video card next. Great. There's going to be a lot of recycled styling here, so that is good news for you. Let's go ahead and do it. So this time we're going to import something else from Cloudinary. We're going to import CLD video player from Next Cloudinary. Okay, so this is specifically to be able to play the videos, okay, preview them if you wish. And what we're going to return, well, once again, it's going to be an article. This article is going to have the class name of, you guessed it, card, so we can reuse that, which is wonderful. We're also then going to have a div, which you guessed it, the class name of title container. So once again, some beautiful recycling of style names. And once again, we're going to have an h4 element with a span element. We're going to put in an emoji, but we're going to give this the class name of emoji. You don't have to put the same one as I am. Okay, I'm just going to put in a play icon. Please go ahead and search for whatever you wish. And I'm just going to put an empty string there, which is going to be the display name of our video. And then I'm also going to put another h4 element here. And once again, I'm just going to use the same 3 dots from before. So just like that. Great. And that is our title container. We're also going to show a loading state. So what we're going to do is loading. And if that is true, we're going to show just a simple P element that says loading ... just so people know that it's loading and that our screen or our app isn't broken or anything like that. So there we go. So if that is true, we show this paragraph element like so. Now we're going to use a div this time, and we're going to use the class name of video container. So this is going to be a bit different, video container. And we're going to essentially always render the video player, but hide it during loading. So this time I'm just going to do style like so, and I'm going to put through visibility. And if is loading is true, then we hide it, right? So hidden, otherwise we're going to put visible. Great. So that is the full piece of code for that. Maybe I'll just put it on a new line so you can see it a little better. So there we go. That is my first div and my closing div. And now in here, I'm going to use CLD video player. And once again, we will come back to this. For now, I'm just going to use another div. So that is now closed off. And in here, well, once again, we're going to do some reusing. I'm going to use a div with the class name of controls, plural, container. But in here, we're just going to have one, to be honest. Div. Again, we're going to reuse the class name of control singular container. And in here, we're going to have a button. Now, this button is once again going to say download, but it's going to say download original. And once again, we're just going to have that fun little arrow that I found on the internet. Feel free to use whatever you wish. Okay, so this is now it for me. This is the whole file at the moment. Okay, so there we go. Title container, loading, a video container which has a visibility that is dependent on this variable, and a controls container which just has one control, to be honest. Let's just go ahead and define is loading at the moment because it's going to give us a bunch of errors. So I'm going to do so in state const is loading, set is loading, use state, and I'm going to start with it being false, but of course that means we also need to import use state from React, just like so. Great. Okay, cool. So we are getting errors saying video play requires a source. So maybe let's just comment that out for now. Cool. So in order to show it, I'm actually going to have to put that in as true. So let's check if that works. And it does. So we now have one card and another card here, even though you kind of can't tell because they're kind of squashed together. But we're good with this for now. I think let's carry on. Maybe one thing to do is just style the video container. So I'm just going to grab in the video container like so. And in fact, I'm just going to add a margin bottom of 5 pixels. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. Okay, we are nearly done. Last one to do is the sidebar. So let's do it. So we're going to essentially upload from this sidebar. So a lot of stuff's going to happen here. But first off, let's actually make it look like a sidebar. Once again, I'm going to use the article element. So here we go. And let's give this the class name of sidebar. We're going to use a CLD upload widget, which is going to allow us to upload things. So of course we need to import that. Let's do import CLD upload widget from Next Cloudinary. Easy. Now we will get back to this. So for now, I'm just going to comment that out. And let's work on our ordered list. So this is kind of just visual. You can give this functionality if you choose to build it out eventually. We're going to have home. We're going to have activity. So activity, we're going to have workspaces. So let's put workspaces. Again, this is purely visual. Okay. Let's also have my drive. Let's also have shared drive. So this is literally everything that is on the original Google Drive. Let's also have shared with me. We'll also have recent, as well as start, as well as spam. Let's put another break here, in fact, just to make sure it looks exactly the same. And then we're just going to have trash and storage. So trash and storage. Of course, you can give this functionality. Like I said, for now, it's just an unordered list. So there we go. Once again, this is all that is for now in my sidebar. So now let's grab the sidebar, and then in here, I'm just going to stick in like so. So now let's import it. Import sidebar from components sidebar. So if we look at it now, there it is. Okay, so we've nearly done it. Let's just style this up and we can get to the meaty stuff, which I bet you're all super excited about. So I'm going to hard code the width of this. I'm also going to make sure that the height is 100 viewport height. Let's also initialize Flexbox. And then let's add a flex direction of column to make sure that everything's stacked on top of each other, and align items at the start, so kind of at the top. And great. So now I am going to go back to the sidebar because finally we can do some fun stuff. I'm going to show you how to configure the upload widget next. So let's do it. Now, in order to essentially upload things to Cloudinary, like I said, we want to do it from the app. So in our sidebar, we're going to essentially create a widget, but we're also going to create presets. So in order to do this, we can go to presets. So back in here, under settings, if you click on upload, we're going to create a upload preset. So this is ones that I have previously. If we create a new one here, we're going to call this something. I'm just going to call it demo tutorial. Let's change to unsigned, which allows us to upload directly from the browser. And then also we need to define an asset folder. So this is simply going to be this right here. So make sure to get your own and just paste it in like so. I'm going to keep the rest of this as it is, so generate a random value for the public ID and use the file name of the uploaded file as the assets display name. So I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and click save. So now our upload preset is done. I'm just going to copy that name and let's go back here so that we can see our media library again. And let's go back to our project. So we have an upload preset. We can define it, set, just by taking the string and using the name of it. And then let's define our on success. Well, we're going to get the result. And what we're going to do is just console log it out so we can see what is going on. We don't actually need to put in those like that. And then we're going to use on handle new upload and just pass through the result info. So this will essentially add the new asset to our media library. Then we need to define our on queues end, and this time we get result, and then we get the widget, making sure to spell widget correctly, and then we get the widget and we close it. Okay, so when we're done, we close the widget. On open of the widget, so open, we handle the on click and open the widget. Okay, so there we go, and I'm just going to return a button that we will actually see in order to open the widget up in our browsers. So this time I'm just going to use button like so. Let's just do new. I'm also going to use a little symbol. Now this button, I'm actually going to give this the class name of new button because we want to add new assets. And then we're going to pass through the on click, which is going to just, call this function. So on click, handle, on click. Great. So that was quite a lot. Let me see if I could just get it all in one screen. Okay, so there we go. Okay, that is my whole CLD upload widget. It's not self-closing, so let's just do that. And I'm just going to close it off. Just like so, making sure to spell it correctly. Ta-da! So once again, I'm just going to scroll through that. We seem to have missed the closing tag for something there. There we go. So the closing tag and all of this is in the opening tag. Okay, great. So now if you look back in your project, here is a button. Maybe let's style it up just quickly. I know I said I was done with styling, but we have missed this button. So I'm just going to grab the new button, making sure to spell new button correctly. And then I'm going to give it a padding of 22 pixels, margin 10 pixels, 30 pixels, so 10 pixels on the left and right, and 30 pixels on the top and bottom. Border radius, it's going to be 15 pixels. Background color is going to be white, 255, 255, 255. And then we're going to do border none. And we're also going to change the font size to be 18 pixels. And we're going to add a box shadow, okay? So this box shadow, we're going to do RGBA to make it transparent. 93 with 0.25 opacity. And then we're going to do 0 on the x-axis, 2 pixels on the y-axis, 5 pixels blur and -1 pixel spread. RGBA, this time black with 0.3 opacity, 0 x-axis, 1 pixel y-axis, 3 pixels and -1 pixels. Great. So that immediately looks better. Now I'm just going to do new button active. So if it is clicked, and I'm just going to change the background color to be RGB 236, 238, 241. And let's also give it a different box shadow. So this is going to be inset this time, 1 pixel, 1 pixel, 0, RGBA, black with 0.1 opacity. So, you can flip this around if you want to keep it the same format. And once again, we're going to do inset. I'm just going to copy paste that. Maybe let's change this to be a little bit more opacity, but here I think I'm going to keep it pretty much the same. Let's just do 0 x-axis and -1 on the y-axis. Great, so now if the button is active, well, it does that, and ta-da, we get our upload widget. So this is looking good. We just need a little more configuration to do. So we just need to essentially define on handle new upload, okay, which we're actually going to pass through from somewhere. We're going to pass it through from the index.js. So here's the sidebar. I'm just going to pass that through as a prop, because here's where we're going to be handling it. So all I'm going to do is define it here, so just like that. And when we pass through the asset, I'm going to set assets. So I'm going to set this to state. And because it is going to be an array of assets, I'm going to essentially get all the previous ones and spill them in here to create a new array of assets. Okay, so let's go ahead and define assets here and use set assets. And I'm going to need to use state. And we're going to start off with it being an empty array, but let's also just console log the assets so we see what's going on. Okay, so essentially all we're doing is adding that asset to the array so that we should get all the assets. But in order to do that, we're going to actually have to get all the assets anyway. But for now, I'm just going to show you what happens. Of course, first we need to import use state from React. Okay, so there we go. I'm just going to move that up here too. So now if we go here, and I'm just going to drag in Rick and Morty like so. Okay, and we look in the console log. We had nothing in our array before, right? But now we have one object, and that object has essentially all this information. We've added it to here. So if I refresh, there is Rick and Morty. And what comes back to us is the asset folder where it lives. It also has a display name that we can use, the format, the public ID, which will be useful for us, and so on. So great, now that we know that works, let's actually get to getting all the assets as well, not just this one. So we're going to do so in this index.js file. So let's maybe write a function for this. So I'm going to do so here, const get data, just like so. This is going to be an async function. So let's write async here. I'm going to try something and catch it. So we're going to use try and catch. I'm going to catch the error. I'm just going to console log out the error, simply like so. Now, what we're going to do is actually use the backend for this. So const data equals, and we're going to fetch, and then we're going to essentially go to our API folder in a file called assets, and we're just going to get all of them. Okay, so that's all we're going to do. Of course, we need to use the await keyword here. And once we have that data, so data, we're going to get the JSON and call it, because that essentially is a method. It's an async method. That's why we use the await keyword. And let's save this as, I don't know, media. So just like that. So now that we have the media, I'm going to use set assets, pass that through just like so, so it gets saved in our array, so that we should get all of them and not just Rick and Morty. So of course, let's try it, but I'm going to put this in a use effect so it runs also when we start our app. So here we go, that's all I am doing here. We're going to get data, we're going to call it, and we're actually going to make this change eventually every time we also update a search term, but we're not going to do that yet. So for now, this is fine. So wonderful. We of course also need to import use effect from React, and let's continue. So like I said, in my API folder, I do have a file called assets. So let's write the code we need in order to communicate with Cloudinary. So I'm going to import v2 as Cloudinary here. We are going to have to import another package. It's just going to be Cloudinary. Okay, so we need to get up this like so. Let's just create a new terminal, and I'm going to do npm I Cloudinary to install that package, making sure we are in the Next.js Google Drive project. So there we go, that is now done. If you look in the package JSON file, this is the version that we are using today, so make sure yours is the same. So now we can use that, and we can grab Cloudinary and set up its config. Okay, and in the config, well, we're just going to have to pass through the cloud name we want to communicate with, which we have saved in our env file. So I'm going to use process env to get it. And we're going to use next public Cloudinary cloud name. Just going to minimize that for you. So that is one thing we're going to need. I'm just going to copy that 1, 2, 3. The next thing we're going to need is the API key. So let's just change this to whatever we saved in our .env file. It was API key. And this we're just going to pass through as API secret, okay? Because we saved our API secret in our env file too. So cool, this is looking good. The spelling is looking good. Now I'm going to async function, define the handler. We're going to pass through the request and the response. And we're just going to essentially get the data. So we're going to use await Cloudinary search, execute just like that, and then we're going to return it. So res status 200 JSON data resources. So we just want the resources from that data. Of course, you can change this into a functional expression if you wish. So const async. then export default handler. Okay, so let's try it out now. There we go. So now we get the assets from our media library showing up. So this is great. We are getting them, but we need to now map them onto here. So let's do it. Now that we know that this works, let's go back to index.js. And there's assets, which at the moment we are just console logging out. I'm going to pass them through to the dashboard. So there we go. So now in my dashboard, let's pass them through again and map them on. So like I said, if the assets exist, I'm going to map each asset. And I'm going to get the asset resource type. As you will see, if you look in here, I'm literally grabbing it by the resource type, which in this case is an image. So if resource types equals the string image, then we can show, so if that is true, then we can show the image card. Okay, otherwise we show the video card. We only have these two, so we're not going to be like super strict about it. What do we want to pass through to the image card? Well, each of these does need a key, and we're just going to use it from the asset. We're going to use the unique asset ID. So we're going to get the asset and get its asset ID, which once again exists here. So asset ID. And we're going to pass through the asset itself. So just like so. And we're going to do the same for the video card. So I'm just going to copy all that and paste it to the video card too. So once again, if you maybe want to see all of that, I can do this. Otherwise, there we go. Okay, hopefully that's a little bit more readable to you. Wonderful. So now on the image card, so let's grab the image card. I'm just going to pass through the asset itself, and we can use it to populate things such as the name of the images. So once again, maybe it's good to just pick out the public ID and display name. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's get the public ID, and let's also get the display name, just so it's a bit cleaner. We're getting that from the asset. And now I can just use the display name instead of the string like so. And we're going to use the public ID in the CLD image. So as the source of this, I'm just going to put in the public ID, just like that. Some other things we can do to the image is assign a width of 300. I'm also going to assign a height of 300 to make it a square. As mentioned, the ID, let's just use the public ID for that so it matches. And as the ulterior name, well, I'm just going to use the display name to show up. We can also do things such as crop the image. So I'm just going to do crop type auto source true. Okay, and we are ready to go. Let's just get rid of these that I hard coded, and let's have a look here. And ta-da, there we go. The images are showing up. This is looking good. I'm just going to start this up one tiny little bit so they are kind of next to each other. And to do that, well, let's grab the uploads container. Let's get the global CSS. I'm just going to grab the uploads container like that. I'm going to make sure that the width is 100%. I'm going to use display grid this time. And I'm going to use grid template columns, repeat auto fit 230 pixels, just because that is essentially how big I want each space to be. I'm also going to add a gap of 20 pixels and use justify content center. Okay? So now everything looks like this. And there we go. While we are here, I'm also just going to change the paddings on some elements, such as the H2 element. I want the padding to be 20 pixels. Let's change the font size of this too. I'm just going to change this to be 28 pixels. And let's also grab the H4 element, so H4. And again, I'm just going to change the font size to be 20 pixels and margin to be 0. We also forgot to grab each list item, so I'm just going to give each one a padding of 30 pixels, a font size of 18 pixels, and a list style type none, just to get rid of those circles. Make sure that says padding 10. And there we go. We might have to play around with this a bit. So for example, maybe let's change this to be font size 11, just so that it fits a little bit better. And maybe let's give the emoji a bit of padding. So once again, let's go here. Let's do margin right 2 pixels or something like that. You can really tweak this as you want. Okay? So I think this could be a little bit better for me, but again, it is up to you. And great. So this is looking wonderful. Now let's hook up the functionality of this. So let's do it. So all I'm going to do is go back to the image card. And there are so many things you can do. For example, if you go to the documentation specifically for Next, so next.cloudinary.dev, and I've already gone to CLD image and its basic usage. Of course, you have the basic usage, such as like the width, the height, and so on. But you can do so much more. Like I can't even tell you. You can do transformations, so do things such as add overlays, remove background. So that's what we're going to do. You can add tint. You can really do so much. If you go over to this here, you can even change the background colors on things. There's a whole tutorial on this. I'm going to show you how to do, essentially, if you go here, I'm going to do remove the background. We've done crop already. We're not going to do fill background, but that could be a fun one to experiment with. And yeah, just so much you can do. You can even see the examples here. So this is for removal of background. So let's go ahead and do it. All we're going to have to do is add remove background. So we can do so like this, sure, but I'm actually going to control whether we want this to be true or false. So I'm going to save this to state. So const remove background, set remove background, and then use state is going to start off being false. But if we essentially check this right here, so on change of this, well, I'm just going to toggle it, okay? So all I'm going to do is use set remove background, and this is how you would toggle. Okay, so that is my on change. So let's try it out. Just here it is once again. And if you go up here, of course, we are going to have to import use state from React. And now let's check it out. So let's go ahead and select no background, and the background is removed. And if I select it, the background is there. Amazing. So we've done no background. Let's do no grayscale next. So let's go back down here. Let's put no grayscale, or let's just have grayscale, right? So just like that. And to get grayscale, well, this is kind of easy. We'll do grayscale spelled with an A, as it is American. And let's save it up here. So once again, I'm going to do const grayscale set grayscale. Make sure that's a comma. Use state and start with it being false, but of course we want to toggle it. So let's go all the way down here. You can spell it the same if you want. It's completely up to you. So I've just changed it. And let's get the on change once more. So on change of this, I'm going to toggle it. So I'm going to do set grayscale. Okay, so now if you select grayscale, it should be gray, or if you toggle it, it won't be anymore. Cool, right? I'm just going to change that font back to be 12. Hold on here. I really love how this is looking. Let's just work on the download button and the prompt we can use to change this completely. Okay, now in order to essentially start typing here and change the background of this to something, I'm going to show you how to do that. This is really fun. Once again, we're just going to have to save something to state. I'm going to save a prompt. So prompt, set prompt, use state, and let's start off with this being an empty string. So now I think we should do is essentially, let's do replace background. So this again is from the documentation that Cloudinary provide about working with the Next SDK. Next background equals, and we're just going to pass through whatever the prompt is. So let's go ahead and of course save that prompt. You should be able to read it here. So I'm just going to do that. And of course, we're going to have an on change here too. So on change of this is going to be different this time. This time we are going to get the event and use set prompt to just set to stay whatever the target value is of that input. So now maybe let's change the placeholder to start typing to change background, as that is what we are going to be targeting. So now, for example, let's maybe add kittens to the background. You will see a kitten has been added. Like, how cool is that? And of course, we can grayscale this. We can not grayscale this. Like, this is super, super fun. Let's try another one, grayscale this, and that change will also be done. Now, this is awesome. One last one I'm going to do is just download the image that we've changed, because I think that could be a really cool feature. So I'm going to write a quick, super quick function to do that. It doesn't require knowing the Cloudinary SDK. I'm simply going to write down load image. Okay. And this will require us looking in the document, getting the element by ID, and the ID of the element is just going to be the public ID, because that is what we have assigned it here. So we're grabbing the ID, we're grabbing that image and getting its source, okay? Because the source would have been changed. So that is the image source, okay? Of the changed image, and I'm going to use something called save as. We're going to have to import that. I'm just going to save the image source, and I'm going to name the download the display name. So save the URL as the updated version with the changes, and then we just save it as the display name, okay, that we passed through. So we're going to download image on the press of this button. So on click of this, we're just going to simply download image. And done. Of course, I did say we need to import something. We're going to import save as from something called file saver. So let's go ahead and import that. Hopefully you've learned something new today, npm i file saver, if you haven't already. So now that has been added, let's see if that works. So let's download this one right here. And ta-da, we get the newest image that we can download to our computers. How cool is that? I love it. Okay, so this is pretty awesome. One more thing to do, which is work on the video card. And then I'm also going to filter all of these by a search term. So let's do it. So the image card is now done. I'm going to get rid of the global CSS, the dashboard, the assets, and the sidebar. And then let's work on the video card. So in the video card, I'm just going to import use effect, as I know we're going to need that. I'm also going to import save as from file saver, as I'm going to want to use that. We are also going to have to pass through the asset into here, and then let's also get the public ID as well as the display name. So a bunch of repetition is happening here at the moment. We're going to have to save a few things. We're going to save retries, set retries, use state as 0. So this is going to track the number of retries, and we're also going to save the error occurred, if there is one. So set error occurred. We didn't do this for the image. You can add it. It's just something that you can do, or that I wanted to do for the image upload. Okay, so this is essentially going to track if the error occurred and save it to state. Now we can also write a function to download original video like we did last time. So as it's fresh in our mind, I'm just going to get the vid source, which is going to be the asset URL, because we're just getting the original video, and we're going to save this as vid source and the display name. So we're just going to pass through the display name, as that is what we want to call the downloaded video. Okay, so now I can just assign it to this button on click, download OG video. Great, so that is now done. Let's work on the video player next. Now, the video player, well, this is going to be a little bit more involved because we're going to have to do a bunch of error handling and retries, but essentially the source is going to be the same as before, so there we go. The ID is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to pass through the public ID, and I'm just going to assign math random to it. So there we go, we're getting the public ID and assigning a random number to it. We're also going to assign a height to this like we did before with the image, so height and width of 300. And the alt name is going to just be the display name, like so. Once again, we can add a transformation, which will just crop the video for us. So width is going to be 400, height is going to be 300. Okay, let's actually make that the same, and we should do it as an object instead. Crop, I'm going to do fill. So it fills the space, and gravity is going to be auto. So that it essentially uses AI to kind of center the video based on where the main action is happening. So gravity is pretty cool. Okay, great. Just make sure this is width 300. So now maybe let's upload a video. I'm just going to browse for one. Here's a video I made on an AI source. So I'm just uploading that. Okay, once that is done, it should essentially show up here after loading has disappeared, and it should also show up in here. So let's have a look if the video has shown up, and it has. And in here, it hasn't yet. Let's figure this out. Here's where we're going to have to do some error handling. So I'm just going to do const handle video error. Pass through the error. If error exists, player exists, video.js exists, error, status code deeply equals 423. Then we're going to retry the logic. So if no error occurred, set error occurred to be true. So this flags it as true. Set is loading to be true. And we're going to set the retries to be 1, right? So we're going to upload whatever that was. We're going to get whatever was previously there and do previous plus 1. Okay, so it's going to increment the retry count. And I'm just going to console log something so we know this is retrying video load. That's just for us to see. Now I'm going to write a use effect. If error occurred, const interval ID set interval I'm going to set retries by grabbing the previous value and again previous add 1, so that will trigger a retry. And this I'm just going to make happen every 5 seconds if an error has occurred. And then let's clean up the interval when metadata is loaded. So return clear interval, and we clear the interval ID. Great. And we want this to trigger every time an error has occurred. Now I'm going to write another use effect to essentially stop the retry mechanism once the metadata is successfully loaded. So if retries is larger than 0 and is not loading, set is loading to false. And this should trigger every time retries changes. Okay, so I'm just going to put that here. On error, we want to handle video error. Okay, great. And let's just check we spelt that correctly. Error occurred. So error occurred. Error occurred. And there we go.
Don't bother with video product shoots, use this instead.
Okay, so we're getting something playing, however, we can't really see it, and it still says loading. Now I'm going to write a function to on handle meta data load. And we're just going to put set is loading back to false. So this will stop loading once metadata is loaded successfully. Set error occurred back to false. So that will reset the error flag. Okay, and now I'm just going to copy this and on meta data load. Let's just put handle metadata load. Okay, great. So let's just change this to be the same. Okay, and there we go. Our image is now showing.
Don't bother with video product shoot.
That is looking good. And of course, we can download the original video too. There we go. Wonderful. So now finally, we just want to be able to search for this by these search terms. So let's do it. So in order to do this, we're going to pass through the search term when we make that fetch request. So all we're going to do is simply use the question mark, and I'm going to pass through the search term Of course, we need to save the search term somewhere, so I'm going to save it here too. Const search term, set search term, use state, make it an empty string for now, and then we want to trigger getting new data every time a new search term is set, and this we want to happen on the dashboard, right? Because the dashboard is where we have the input, the search input. So I'm going to pass through the search term and the method of changing the search term into the dashboard. So let's go to the dashboard, and here I'm going to pass through the search term and the set search term. So we essentially want to display the search term in the input, but also let's just do on change. Of course, this might trigger an API call too much and it might be a bit expensive, but for this small project, I think it should be fine. So all I'm going to do is say that on change of this, I'm going to pass through the eTarget value into the set search term to be saved its state in the index.js file. Okay, so now our search term will be saved here essentially. So we're saving it here. At the moment it's nothing, but if we type in this input, it should update, and then we want to pass it through here to make that API call. So in here where we're going to have to get that word, right? So let's do it. All I'm going to do is get the full URL, right? Because the full URL is going to be API asset search term, and we just want to get everything after the question mark. So I'm going to get that URL from rec.url, and I'm going to split it out by the question mark. Okay, so the search term from that URL, let's just define search term, is going to be the URL, but the second part of it. So if it's split into 2 items, I get the second one, which has the index value of 1. So now I've got that search term from the URL, and I'm just going to use expression and pass through the search term in that expression in order to search Cloudinary by that search term, and then await that data to come back. So now let's give it a go. So if I just want Rick and Morty to come back, I can do Rick, and that thing shows up. If I just want these shoes to show up, maybe I'll do CLD sample 5. And the more I type, of course, the more likely it is to come back to me. Great. So that is working. This is wonderful. One last thing, we need the display name of this to show up for our video. So in the video card, we can just use the display name of that file there. And ta-da! There we go. This is looking so, so good. If you're having issues with your video not quite showing up as a square, maybe just get rid of the math random if it's not causing you issues, and it will be a square from now on. And there we have it. We are now done. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. I really enjoyed showing you how to make this Google clone with AI capabilities, and also showing you how to essentially store images and videos in Cloudinary, as well as manipulate them with all the cool transformation and techniques, as well as their AI capabilities. Thanks so much again, and I'll see you again soon.